What's up, everyone? Welcome back to A Line in the Stars. I'm Jordan,
I'm Matt
and we haven't done this for a while. God, I think we dropped the last podcast in August of last year.
of last year. Yeah.
Like, August of last year. It's November of this year. It's kind of crazy.
Time.
Yeah, time, and what's funny is we've been doing a lot of stops and starts over the last couple of years, but as this channel has actually started to get a little bit bigger and we've been doing some things, it's time to actually do what all started from. So that's some podcasting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, we have I guess to start, we have a lot to cover. A lot has happened since we recorded. We recorded a couple of episodes that never actually hit the air. And so we're going to go ahead and start by looking back.
Yeah. So we're going to be going back through kind of a lot of the stuff that we missed or didn't get to talk about on the channel. We have actually about like 6 or 7 lined up with different episodes and shows covering. And for the first one, we're going to be doing a little bit of a recap to get started. The ones that we're going to be doing today are Discovery Season 4 as a recap, and the last couple episodes of Obi-Wan, and doing a little recap on that one too.
Yeah, it's interesting, like when we started, we work a lot together, and but craziness of work has not led to us being able to actually like plan for these things.
Mm-hmm.
And so we went back and I listened to what we had covered before, and I was actually kind of shocked to think that Disco 4 was still going on and we were talking about Kenobi.
Mm-hmm.
Considering that Disco 4, like, I think the last episode, if I can see this correctly, the last episode of season 4 was in March of last year, and
Mm-hmm.
Kenobi was June 22nd of last year. So yeah, it's kind of crazy to think that this dropped. We've had all of these drop, and then everything else since then. And so yeah, it's absolutely appropriate to pick up exactly where we left off.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess let's just go ahead and start talking some disco.
Yeah.
I
So,
Go ahead.
Season 4.
Yeah.
That was, there's always not this bell curve, but this exponential growth for Star Trek shows that gets progressively better as the show goes on. And hopefully that's true with a lot of other shows. That's not always guaranteed, but
Right.
it's almost constant with Star Trek. And it's always when the show starts to get its footing.
Yeah.
And I feel like season 4 was the first one where they could finally start getting their feet going and start moving and start running, because the whole first 2 seasons were limited by the fact that it was all happening, before Kirk and Spock and technological achievements for that they had to try to play around with. And then you
Right.
have the season 3 where they go into the future and everything's new and strange, and the characters themselves are getting their footing and figuring out what the universe is looking like. Season 4, well, now we got Starfleet. We're bringing the crew back together. The crew being all of Starfleet.
Right.
Getting some of the planets back in together with the United Federation of Planets. And we are handed another doomsday galaxy ending event.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And this one is the DMA. What did you think of the DMA as a overarching plot line?
I thought it was interesting in the beginning. The first, I I guess the way to look at Disco 4 is like it's kind of a tale of one story that should have been maybe one long story that could have been split into several smaller stories. But the DMA in the beginning, like in the very first episode, when you see Quajon being destroyed, it's shocking. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other moment that, also when you're just specifically talking about the DMA is when Book and Tarka use their weapon to destroy the DMA, and it immediately comes back. Like,
Right.
no big deal. Like, it just immediately pops back into existence. All that work, everything that they had done was for nothing. I found it to be an incredibly, like, it's menacing, right? It was really
Mm-hmm.
menacing. Kind of like the whole dilithium crisis when they got to the 32nd century.
Mm-hmm.
Menacing, like what's going on, but then it turned out to be pretty benign. The so that was kind of my biggest thoughts on the DMA itself. Now, the special effects with it, everything that it did, throughout the season, like all the different appearances and how all of the characters reacted to it, how the Federation and um, the Vulcans and how everybody all kind of approached it from a different angle. I did find it
Mm-hmm.
very interesting, but once again, it was just kind of like the storyline wind up just being benign in
Mm-hmm.
the end. And so, yeah, interesting in the beginning. I mean, what were your thoughts?
I think as I explain my thoughts on the DMA, I think it's also a good idea to kind of run down just like the big points
Mm-hmm.
that were throughout the entire season,
Yeah.
which also gives me a chance to sing this season's praises as
Yeah.
I go about the whole thing.
Right.
Um, one, the chemistry between Burnham and Book is phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
Like they have amazing on-screen chemistry. Like it is very wholesome. It makes me smile, and I believe that they are in like a really loving, caring relationship. Where both of them care about their work professionally and respect each other, and give each other like the freedoms to, you know, be who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but you have the grief for Book when his planet is destroyed. And what I liked about that was it wasn't like uh I'm hurting, now I'm okay
Yeah.
run through. Like
Right.
it had dips, it had curves, it had peaks and valleys.
Mm-hmm.
And to the credit of I am blanking on the villain's name. Um
Rillick, or not Rillick? That's the
yes.
president. That's
No.
the president. Tarka.
Tarka.
Yeah.
Yes. Um I liked Tarka through the majority of the show
Mm-hmm.
of this season,
Yeah.
because again he has that sort of like egotistical um science jock,
Yeah.
um like crypto bro sort of
Yeah. Yeah.
thing,
Exactly.
which his drive and justifying the means for his own goals um kind of brings in and complicates like Book's feelings and how he goes about doing it,
Mm-hmm.
how he tackles the problem of the DMA. They do a whole bunch of stuff bouncing between different worlds trying to figure out what the DMA is. Eventually, they all come together and vote at um, Starfleet headquarters
Mm-hmm.
to figure out what they want to do. If they want to destroy the DMA or try to open up diplomatic ties with the species, the aliens.
Species 10C.
10C, yeah.
Yeah.
And Star Trek almost always does courtroom scenes very well.
Mm-hmm.
And I really liked that as well. Like the back and forth of just talking to each other, expressing their beliefs and trying to, persuade the others on which way to vote. And the fact that it was between Book and Burnham, essentially,
Yeah.
who both, again, we've seen how much they care about each other and that they both value each other. But, there is a respect on, like, them not seeing eye to eye and still trying their best to do what they believe is right. Book is going, we need to destroy this thing so it doesn't hurt anyone else. And Burnham is going, we need to have open dialogue with 10C
Right.
because we don't
Well,
want to
well,
hurt
what's kind
anyone
of
else.
well, and to interject with that too, like you have to look at Burnham's history as well. Like she took the guns blazing approach, at the very beginning at the
At
Battle
the
of the
very beginning, yeah.
Binary, at the very beginning, right, of Discovery at the Battle of the Binary Stars, and she has seen the constant effects of not doing it the Federation or the Starfleet way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you don't do it this way, if you don't approach it from a scientific angle, if you don't approach it from a state of diplomacy, then oftentimes it's going to quite often literally blow up in your face.
Mm-hmm.
And
Misunderstandings and
absolutely, whereas
yeah.
Book in that situation specifically there, he's being fueled by Tarka. Tarka
Mm-hmm.
is, in the background. Like that's the thing that's interesting. Like I did like Tarka as a bad guy. I did like Tarka. I found that Tarka was probably the most interesting part of the whole season because you can look at his motivations and be like, yeah, no, I get it. Like he wants to get back to where he's from, and he's trying to get back to the person that he loves and cares for, and
Mm-hmm.
he's pretty much willing to move heaven and earth to get there.
Yeah.
But he's manipulating Book. He's
Yeah.
using those feelings, and so Book on the to be the marionette, to be the puppet at the end of the marionette string, is to be like I can't imagine like what Book went through in the last season. It is quite amazing, and the way that it was acted and performed, it absolutely made you feel 100% for the character and understand his motivations as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I just it's that I agree in that scene, in that episode specifically, like where they're all discussing like we need to approach it this way and this way. You have this collective narrative backing both arguments, and that's the
Mm-hmm.
beauty of modern Star Trek, right?
Yeah.
Serialized modern Star Trek. Like it's the beauty of it. Here you are, you have Burnham, and you know that why she's coming from this direction, and just from knowing a couple of seasons of Book, you understand exactly why he's coming at it from his point of view. And because Star Trek does great writing and great character development, you understand exactly where Tark is coming from, and Rillick and everyone else in that room. And it's just, yeah, a lot of the criticisms I have are for the overall story arc, and it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of the criticism, and we'll talk about it when we get to Kenobi and the point that I want to make for both of these, um, specifically. But like the criticisms that I do have for Disco 4 kind of go away when you look at the micro, like the individual pieces of the story. The characters are all incredibly complex,
Mm-hmm.
and had they everybody who acted and performed it specifically during the middle of the pandemic, like to do all of that and be limited in contact with each other and all that, it's pretty amazing. So
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of the criticisms that I have for the season 4 kind of get washed out when it comes to the individual performances and the scenes, and when you break it down for those moments, they really were quite enjoyable.
Yeah. Um, Speed running through like the last half of of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Um, real quick, I did really like Rilek.
Yeah,
Um,
same,
on it,
same.
he's like the phrase of her. He goes, you know, of her telling Burnham like what you've done for all of sentient life cannot be denied,
Right.
but you swing from one end to the other.
Yeah.
And when it comes to certain things, there's a very fine line between a pendulum and a wrecking ball.
Right. Yeah.
And
Like,
I'm like,
oh, the first episode, the
that's
name of the
so
first
good.
episode of the season is Kobayashi Maru,
Exactly.
and Rillick is there to test Burnham to put her in command of the Voyager, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so, like, and Burnham's like, bro, who are you? Like, you have no idea who the hell I am, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's really it's interesting. Like, it starts out with that, and yeah, she's the perfect foil for Burnham.
Mm-hmm.
She's the perfect foil, and the thing that I love the most about Rillick as a character is that it has very strong Deep Space Nine connections, right? Like, it's that
Yeah.
she is the blend of three species: Cardassian, Bajoran, human,
Mm-hmm.
and she reminds everyone that points that all three of her progenitor species basically
Yeah.
were extraordinarily warlike, and so to approach everything from a thoughtful and reasonable point of view, well thought out, and from a scientific mind a scientific place is the
Mm-hmm.
most important thing of all. And yeah, she was absolutely the perfect foil for Burnham this season for sure, and beautifully acted. And I can't wait to see her in the next season.
I also want to give a special mention to episode 8 of this season, All In,
Mm,
where Burnham Book uh, essentially go play cards to
yeah,
get the piece
yeah,
that Tarkin needs.
yep,
And this is one of the episodes that it keeps the high stakes of what's going on, but at the same time slows it down and lets us see the characters, see Burnham and Book slow down and be someone else.
and Oo as well. Like, I
And
mean,
yes,
she gets to be an absolute badass throughout the entire
yes, in the
episode.
boxing
So,
ring.
oh, absolutely. Yeah, fantastic episode. It was a fun little, like, mint, like a breath mint,
Mm-hmm.
to right before you take the big deep plunge, towards the really heavy sciencey stuff as we get towards the end of the season. And yeah, absolutely. I think that's actually one of my favorite episodes of the whole season.
Same.
And I love, just once again, another DS9 reference, but the fact that
Mm-hmm.
one of the thieves that are running around as a shapeshifter is
It's a
just
shapeshifter.
uh
That was such a surprise.
it was, especially like with this, we didn't know what we were gonna get in season 3 of Picard, right? So
Mm-hmm.
like we're like, oh my god, is like we're about to see shapeshifters for the first time in forever, and this is like so yeah, absolutely fantastic episode. It was
Yeah.
and another one of those where Burnham didn't get what she wanted,
Mm-hmm.
and the beauty of Star Trek is that they have no problem showing that even the heroes don't always get exactly everything that they want,
Mm-hmm.
and they had to reapproach it from a different standpoint. And it's beautiful storytelling. It really was.
Yeah. Essentially, to get to 10C, they have to escape the galactic barrier,
Mm-hmm.
which very cool idea. Um, I think I saw something recently where the animated series did something very similar to like having to go outside of the galactic space.
Really,
Um,
yeah. I can tell you
which
that.
good for the animated series.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the way that they end up communicating with 10C through emotions and connecting through both math and emotions to communicate with them is very interesting, and it comes from and as a theme of this entire season is it comes from a place of shared trauma,
Right, right.
which I think is a very good thing to explore in Star Trek.
Right.
Discovery has kind of been the more um, adventurous Star Trek show to explore the emotional um, connections and emotions and what it means to be, in our case, humans.
Right.
Um, and this also, was, you know, during COVID,
Right.
where our world was changed very drastically, and in some cases, in very major ways of losing people,
Yeah.
whether it's personal or the mounting toll as the year went on and as the second year went on,
Yeah.
where as a shared trauma, how do we come back from
Mm-hmm.
this? And I think that's an incredibly important message to explore. And I'm really, really glad that this is the direction that season 4 went. And they did it well. I think they did it well.
They did. And it's really just, I don't know.
I'm about to go on to the butts. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and drop one of those right now. And yeah, I mean, I agree for all of that. Like the species 10C, the species 10C were super fascinating,
Mm-hmm.
and they, the way everything was approached was like Star Trek through and through.
Mm-hmm.
But kind of like the season before, it just fell flat. It just
Yes.
fell really flat. The last two episodes were really just kind of, in the penultimate episode, the Species 10C itself, we get to see, where Book, was it in Species 10C? Or I guess it might have been Coming Home, where, Tarka and Book are fighting, they're fighting, and, like there's the scene anywhere where the ship is destroyed and the Species 10C wind up saving Book, right? But we didn't know
Uh-huh.
that. But we didn't know that, right? Like
Yes.
we didn't. And so it was this very shocking moment, and you feel for Burnham, like she's got to stand there and take it and then command,
And she
right?
acted
And
and
she
she acted
does.
that incredibly well.
Absolutely. But then just as a character, like, outside of that, like the character itself, Burnham absolutely like swallowed that moment and stood up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I found the most gratifying moment in all of that, and it was the returning of Book at the end, like when he comes back and there's like this oh my god moment, and you have him make the final plea
Mm-hmm.
towards Species 10C, and he's like, look, you got to stop. Like you just have to stop the amount of destruction that you're doing, everything. You just got to stop. And it's what finally turned the tide, right? And I found that to
Mm-hmm.
be incredibly powerful. But everything else just kind of really fell short. It just felt really flat. Like the bad guy wasn't that much of a bad guy. I would much rather
Mm-hmm.
have your Vatic type character where I mean it worked for season 3. It really did. So I found the whole thing with Sukal to be very fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
I did. I found all of that to be very very fascinating. But then to repeat that same sort of dull like ending to the
Yeah.
season, it just that's where it fell short for me. And
It was literally watching it was either the last episode or the second to last episode. It had probably was the last episode, but when Tarka had his whole like redemption scene,
yeah,
I literally said before that I was like, don't you dare, please don't.
yeah, I know,
He's a way more interesting character if you don't do it.
right.
And then they did it, and like, uh, it feels like you took the easy way out on this.
Yeah.
Like, again, on the same thing where it's like, I think the biggest problem is the pacing for season 4.
Yep.
The having the DMA be a thing as a storyline, great. But you literally spend half of this season figuring out what the DMA is and getting to it.
Right.
And in between, it's still trying to keep the high tension, like like feeling of like every second is crucial, and which leads to like really good episodes like All In, but also like when you have side episodes which are important because they move other characters forward.
Right.
But you know, it doesn't feel like the biggest one I think was as the DMA was approaching Earth. Burnham and Saru vented out their frustrations by yelling at each other, just screaming.
Yeah.
And under normal circumstances, this is a cute scene.
Right.
But sitting here is like the fate of Earth is
literally hanging in the balance. Yeah.
Every second counts, and you guys are screaming
at
each other and having a cute moment where like you should be. There are other things you should be doing.
Exactly.
On that note, though, I think another highlight for the season was Tilly and the evacuation of Earth.
Yeah, absolutely. And along with the Admiral as well. Like I felt
and Admiral.
The two of them really play well off of each other. And I found that it to be an incredibly gratifying scene.
Let's roll down a couple really cool things. I mean, one, the characters and the scene.
Yeah.
Like, it gets to a point where, like, they've done everything they can, and they are just sitting at home base, just talking. Like, there's nothing else we can do. We're staying.
Right.
If it happens, we're going down with the ship. And they have a very grounded, real, like, yeah, this is it.
Yep.
And have but one, also seeing home base travel through warp.
Yeah, I know.
Nuts.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I love the fact that it's a starship.
It's a starship. It breaks out, segments of it break off to help with the rescue as life rafts.
Yeah, I know.
To get people off.
So cool.
The last time we saw a station move was in Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, in the pilot.
And that was using thrusters.
I know. It's great.
And then the next time that space station was moved was when Space Dock 1, Earth Space Dock, was retired and was moved over to 8th and Prime to be the Fleet Museum. And new Space Dock was built up to replace Space Dock 1 as the Earth base.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting too. Like, I wonder when, like the Federation headquarters / Starfleet headquarters / Federation. What is it? The Federation 1 is the name of the ship or something like that?
Federation 1? I've been calling it home base.
Yeah, either way, but like whatever it is, I wonder when it was built. Like, I mean, obviously at some point, in the far distant, Star Trek future or whatever it was. But yeah, it's kind of,
right.
Yeah, I did really like how they took the, like they made a ship out of it, and a pretty badass ship as well. So yeah, it was pretty good. One of my favorite things from the season was the whole story with Gray and how they were able to separate Gray from Indira. And I really appreciated the fact that, the story of being seen at the end of season 3, paid off, and that, they believed her.
Yeah.
and it was such a great like thing to have Gray become an actual physical character.
Yeah.
I found that to be such an incredibly great storyline.
It also makes for a really good like representation of people who are trans,
Right, exactly.
where like Gray is able to pick and choose and make adjustments to how they look
Right,
because most people don't really
get to.
if you can alter like that specifically to be like who you want to be, who you want to look like, then like yeah, absolutely. Like it's continuing the whole Stamets, Hugh, Adira, Gray
Yeah,
like found family is one of the best parts about Disco season, any season,
yeah,
honestly.
absolutely, and it's one of the best things I think of overall Star Trek as well. Like just
Mm-hmm.
that, it's the on-screen representation of the found family, which
Yeah,
Star Trek and Star Wars do both very best.
yeah,
That found family aspect of it is just it's perfect, and they all represent um, you know these characters in such a way that really makes you want to root for them as
yeah.
individuals and as a family unit. So yeah, I loved it. And the only other thing that I really loved this season was Saru.
Saru, yeah,
Yeah, like we see him in the beginning, and he's at home with Sukal, and he's struggling with how to deal with the Baul, and how to you know like walk amongst his people as like one of the revered elders, so to say.
mm-hmm.
And to come back as Mr. Saru, and the first officer of the Discovery. I found it to be perfect, although a little bit of a tropey thing. Like you got to keep him around. Like you promoted him to captain, now what do you do? Sort of thing. But
Uh-huh.
the way they utilized him this season was just amazing. Doug Jones continues to just absolutely impress with
Yeah,
his
one but like
portrayal.
his skill and talent and history of playing a creature, I think it was creature actor,
He is a creature actor, yeah,
is phenomenal. I've always loved Saru and how Doug Jones
yeah,
portrays him.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely,
I also um, last night I realized that if Discovery season 4 had done like 2 arcs, that would have been in line with how they did season 1.
yeah, absolutely,
Because the first one they did the what would you call that? Like Tarka, the Lorca. It,
Lorca, yeah,
it's the vowels. It's the multiple
yeah,
a vowels
yeah.
that's messing me up. Yeah, Lorca. Lorca in season 1. That was like the first half, right? And then no,
Yeah.
it was the Klingon.
Well, it's interesting. Season one, you have like the first two, which is part of the Klingon arc and like Burnham's story. And
Mm-hmm.
then the next like five or six are all Lorca and build up towards like the bigger story and Klingon War.
Yeah.
And then you have the Mirror arc,
Mm-hmm.
which was absolutely fantastic. And then you had the mirror arc spun off into the conclusion of the Klingon arc. Yeah, I found that the pacing of season one was actually really good. It was fascinating.
Yeah.
Season one and two, like even season two, like the build up to find Spock, it still took 8 episodes, right? Like
Yeah.
but even then, we during that time, like they were having individual episodes that all moved along the story, but like you had the Saru episode, and then you had the Pike and Burnham and Owu on the one planet, what winds up being um, where Burnham's mom is sent to later on. So yeah, I mean, once again, I can't disagree. The pacing in season 4 was my biggest knock. And
Yeah.
I'll kind of wait to make my point after we talk about Kenobi here.
Yeah.
At the end of that, because like it's a further like call on how TV is being done these days, and it's not really even a Star Trek or a
Right.
Star Wars problem. It's just kind of a TV problem these days. So,
Right.
but yeah, overall though, I thought that season 4 was good.
I enjoyed season 4. Again, I have the same critique, is the single overarching threat
mhm.
being this one thing. It didn't feel like it had the payoff that they were building up for 13 episodes.
Right, right,
Like that, I feel like if they had kept the same payoff, that's the same answer, um but made it like a half season and then had something else going on for the second half of the season,
yeah,
I feel like that I would not have nearly as much like problem with the pacing.
right, same, same,
So
same. Yeah, I
yeah,
can't disagree. I can't disagree. I am looking forward to season 5. Obviously,
I am.
it's gonna be
I
the
am too.
last. It's gonna be the last of Star Trek Discovery that we get. But
And I'm I'm a little bit sad about that.
so am I.
Like,
So am I.
as I was saying, like at the beginning, it's like, we have they're finally in a spot where I feel like, they can get their rhythm going.
Yeah.
Like they're in their own time period. They're not hampered by the middle ground between, you know, Enterprise and Strange New Worlds.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think about that now.
Yeah, that they were kind of hampered by the lore and you
Mm.
know, but and they were able to get out there into the future and find their footing again. But just as like season 4 is coming to an end, it's like, all right, cool, we can get a season where like they're going, and it's like, oh wait, we have to wrap this up now.
Exactly. Well, and
So,
that's the thing that I'm hoping for season 5.
mhm,
They had finished production, got canceled, and were allowed to make a few more episodes. So I'm hoping that they're going to take the time and they're going to get this season right. From all
mhm,
intents and purposes, what I hear, there's supposed to be a little bit more of a traditional Star Trek storytelling. They see the writing on the wall, they recognize what's going on. But to
mhm.
kind of, I think, to further expand upon your point, ultimately in the end, I think what happened to Discovery was the pandemic.
Yes.
Um, it, it started shooting in 2017, and we're almost 2024 now. That is 7 years.
Oh my
Um,
goodness. Yeah. Oh my
think
goodness.
about it.
Yeah.
Like, think about it. We lost 2 full years to production delays and all of those things. And so I'm not
Oh.
surprised. I'm not surprised at all. It's hard to retain actors for that long. Obviously, with the strike just ending, these actors got to get out and make their money, and they
Yes.
got to be able to support their families. And so, yeah, it's one of those things where I'm not surprised. Like, look at the time. Every show has gotten 7 years, and it seems like they might want to go for that. And this disco may have gotten 7 years, but it's only going to be 5 seasons. And so I'm hoping that
Yeah.
we're going to be able to get a really nice the conclusion. And obviously, we have Starfleet Academy coming up, so
Mhm.
we're not done seeing Burnham and the crew and all the rest. But
Yeah.
like I just don't think that like financially that show can continue to go on, because once again, every year that those actors are under contract, they make more money in every single year. So I'm
Mhm.
sure that the show is just getting too expensive to make at this point. So it sucks for us, but
Yeah.
once again, like if they knock season 5 out of the park, then give it to us, and
Hmm.
I'm gonna be super happy for it. So
Yeah. And tagging on one more thing, it also kind of sucks that the news of season 5 being the last season of Discovery also happened at the same time Prodigy was canceled.
yeah, it's interesting about that too. Is like I don't know.
I'm glad they have a new home on
Same,
Netflix.
same.
I'm ready to finish up the second half of season 1 on Netflix, and I'm glad that they'll be able to release season 2 onto Netflix and have it be streamed and have all of the hard work that all of the actors, all of the special effects artists, all of the animators, that they get to release their show to the audience that wants it. It's not particularly my type of show, but I'm very glad that it exists. It's doing very interesting things, and like I said, I'm looking forward to finishing season 1, but it just gives a very bad taste in your mouth when that was paired up, when season 5 of Discovery being the last one was paired up with a show that was being canceled
Yeah,
partially for tax write-offs.
yeah, it definitely did. You'll be surprised with the second half of Prodigy. Actually,
I'm looking forward to it.
yeah, there was only one episode. There was a clunker in the second half, and definitely once you get to it, we'll have to talk about that as well, which is actually what we haven't put on our list. So,
Yes.
well, I guess speaking of lists, we should probably move on to the final part of our day today, and that's going to be talking about the last couple episodes of Kenobi.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was episode what was it, 12 of our podcast.
Uh-huh.
We had done a review of the first 4 episodes of Kenobi and had
Yeah.
given our thoughts. And it finished off, and boy, did it finish off.
Boy, did it finish off. I
Yes,
was
yeah, wow.
I was so surprised that we did not actually finish talking about this.
Same, God.
What terrible timing. We apologize.
Yeah, well, I mean, here we are. We're talking Star Wars and Star Trek, and we're going to do both at the same time. So, yeah, Kenobi, I feel like, to preface what I'm going to talk about later, I feel like Kenobi was a well executed plan.
Mm-hmm.
They had a story to tell,
Mm-hmm.
and they told their story, and they tied up all the loose ends. They did an amazing job, and specifically looking at the last 2 episodes, it really, like, part 5, like, opens up with you know Anakin and Obi-Wan sparring
Yeah.
on Coruscant, and didn't bother to de-age Anakin, and they threw a trashy wig on Obi-Wan, and it was just, but it was glorious. And every moment from that on was this like, I guess the best way of putting it would be, like, we're going to tell this story through flashbacks, right, of Obi-Wan and Anakin fighting, and we're going to see how each one is stronger than the other one, and you're going to see how each one of them play off of each other, and how well they know each other, and how like, it was the first episode where Kenobi was
Mm-hmm.
Kenobi through and
Mm-hmm.
through. Like, he
Yes.
was not afraid to be himself. He was fully in contact with the Force. Like, everything is just, like, with in this episode, paid off all of the kind of the slowness of the first 4 episodes, but slowness in the sense that they had a story to tell to really build up in these last two.
Yeah.
And for me, like, my favorite moment in the entire episode, outside of the Vader fight with Riva,
Mm-hmm.
the my favorite moment is when Riva's got the squadron there, and she's trying to beat down the door at Jabim, and after Obi-Wan and her have that quiet moment, and he surrenders, He's like, you think that you're bringing him to me? No, I'm bringing him to you. Like that moment was such just this perfect Obi-Wan moment. Like it's in that, like Obi-Wan fucks with people. And I don't know what it is. He is just pure sass, but he does.
Yeah.
And like he uses that sass to his advantage. Once again, he is being fully himself at this point, and you know him recognizing what she's doing. Like he knows that Riva shouldn't know that that's Anakin, right? He knows that, like, okay, well, you're actually trying to kill him, aren't you? Right?
Uh-huh.
So it just such a beautiful job of like letting him slip fully back into character, but be a little bit more of the sassy older Ben Kenobi sort of
Yeah,
character.
that blend between Clone Wars Kenobi and A New Hope
Yeah,
Kenobi,
yeah,
or
absolutely.
Rebels Kenobi if you like.
Yeah, I mean, old Ben.
Old Ben.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's just they did a great job of allowing him to be both characters.
Yeah.
Like the broken, when fixed, never goes back together correctly, right? And so,
Yeah. It's made in a different way.
right,
Yeah.
yeah, and you see it here,
Yeah.
and you know, it, I love the moment. Oh gosh, what is the character's name? Roken. When Roken is, coordinating to get people out of there, and you see his leadership. I don't know. His character gave this sort of human side to the story, like,
Yeah.
like yeah, you want to do these things, but I'm just trying to get these people saved. Like,
Yes.
so yeah, very just, I great like payoff, and then after a couple of flashbacks, to that fight, Obi-Wan realized exactly how to get to Vader,
Hmm.
and I love that moment where Vader busts into the room, into the bay,
Yeah.
and literally does the force pull down of
Yeah.
the ship, and he starts just ripping the sides off the ship, and he's so confident that he's won, only to have Obi-Wan trick him again,
Yeah.
and he
It's like, oh, it's a different ship.
different ship
Yep.
gone,
Yeah.
and that moment like beautifully coincides with the sparring, and how Obi-Wan is like, I don't need a lightsaber to win. Like,
Yeah.
it and how in the sparring moment, he takes Anakin's lightsaber from him,
Yes.
and it just the Deborah Chow directed that so beautifully. She did such an amazing job of taking the story that was given to her, and taking the knowledge and love of these characters, and really just like putting it together in such a way that makes it just feel so real.
Yes.
And yeah, so when you have
I agree with everything you said. Like, because and this is all just part 5.
part 5, yeah,
Like
and we,
we
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 haven't even
also get to
talked we haven't
see,
even talked about the fight between
yeah,
Riva and Vader. Like
but
Vader,
we see, adding on a little bit more to that, we see Leia doing her thing, a little
yes,
bit of rebellious,
oh,
a little bit like, no,
sass,
I'm going to help.
yeah, absolutely,
Um, again, like you see, again, like you said, the guy who was saving the force sensitive kids.
oh, Haja,
Yes.
yeah,
Again, loved him.
same,
That he comes, you see more of him. That it's not the act is only a part of him,
exactly, exactly.
and and then the Reva Vader fight.
It's Vader
Um,
being pure badass.
yeah, taking Reva's
Like, he fights
like
her with,
dual wielding.
he, not even dual wielding. He fights her without even using his own lightsaber.
Yeah,
He never picks up his own lightsaber in that entire
no,
fight. Never. Like literally
is
puts her down. Put
so intimidating.
Yes, super intimidating. Like it how you see him in episode 3 and how you see him in at the end of episode 5, Vader is super intimidating.
Oh
And
yeah,
like I mean he it's supposed to be like not just supposed to be like he is one of the most deadly creatures that ever walked the Star Wars galaxy, right? So
yeah,
but most of the time that we see him is at the end of Obi-Wan kicking his ass. And
yeah,
so but it's the show is Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? And
yeah,
so we have to show that why Obi-Wan is like one of the greatest Jedi that ever lived. And and I think that's the whole point of the character, right? Like you have this character who's been through such personal turmoil and hell and like between losing people that he's loved and like everything that we now know about Obi-Wan's character to continue to just be more and better and
yeah.
to eventually accept himself by the end
It's
of
a
this.
very human character piece.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so Vader going in and just absolutely dismantling Riva, who
Yeah,
went through and probably could have taken out any one of the other Inquisitors by herself.
yeah,
Right.
probably.
Probably. I mean, like she took on the Grand Inquisitor, but I mean, then again, she tricked him. But
Yeah,
I mean, that's the thing. Like for Vader just to go in and like split her lightsaber in half, and then use both sides of it, give her part of it, and then not fight with his own lightsaber at all, and at one
yeah,
point without a saber, and then
yeah,
puts her down is just out of control. And it was really gratifying knowing that it was Hayden Christensen in the suit. Like
yes,
there was no one else wearing the suit. It was just Hayden, and for him, like I love how much like Star Wars has really embraced him back now at this point. Like after Ahsoka
yes,
and everything, like we can look at it now from afar, but like when this was coming out, all the love that he got Hayden Christensen got from the Star Wars fans themselves, you see the like Vader is him and he is
yeah.
Anakin, and when we see him in Ahsoka and the way he fights with his lightsabers, like it's Anakin,
It's Anakin.
it's Anakin, and so going into Episode 6,
Yeah.
like
The
go
the
ahead,
biggest thing was him and Obi-Wan.
yeah, well,
And
yeah, but it starts out like real quick. Episode
real
6
quick.
starts out tonally different a little bit
Yeah.
because it has Riva going to go find Luke, right?
Yeah.
And so it has this new underlying B story that offers like really some supreme, like I love what Owen and Baru go through. I love seeing their characters have to defend and try to save Luke, and that it just provided this tension because we all knew it was coming.
Yeah.
We were off for our third major battle between Anakin and Obi-Wan, basically, or Darth Vader and Obi-Wan, and so there had to be something. There had to be something. We knew that fight was going to come to a stalemate, right?
Yeah.
We knew, like, in order for A New Hope to happen, it had to get there. So there had to be something
Yeah.
that offered that tension piece. And I love the fact that Reva survived because of course she did. Poor
Uh-huh.
Qui-Gon gets stabbed and he just does not survive. It's so sad. Everyone else stabs and it's just fine. Um, but uh, yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like, I loved that B story. I love that B storyline of like that whole pursuit and seeing Owen and Luke interacting and all of that. Just the little tonal shift right at the very beginning
Yeah.
of the episode was just fantastic. Sorry to interrupt on that one,
Yeah.
but yeah,
No, Owen, Baru, we get to see them as in a way that we haven't seen them really before. And that is the caring parents
right,
of Luke.
right,
Where you entirely believe, well, like no, like Owens is like he is my son. For all intents and purposes, he is my son. I'm gonna protect him with my last breath. And Beru is a badass.
Yeah, she really is.
Like,
Like,
she
straight up.
goes, and she feels like the backbone, like the. I don't have like a good comparison on that, but like where Beru is like the support, where like you can see like her determination, her like preparedness, the like no, we are doing this right now. Just this the face on Uncle Owen's like face when Beru pulls out the stash of weapons and tosses it to him. Yeah, they do it incredibly well, and this ties into like another thing of like her being one of the people who helped, who was behind the movement of freeing the slaves on Tatooine.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Like, it's like we see more of her, and to see who she is, other than she's not just the lady who pours blue milk.
Right. Exactly.
She's a freedom fighter. She is determined. Like she's protecting her son.
Yep.
Like they do such a good job, and the fact that Uncle Owen stands up to Reva,
Oh, I know. I
like,
love it. And
oh my gosh, like
my
any
favorite part was when they throw the flower, when he throws the flower pots.
the flower pot,
Yeah. Oh
yeah.
my God.
It's like any one of hundreds of learned moves
Right.
from a Jedi
Right.
could end Owen.
Yep. Exactly. But he's out here just being audacious with it too. I mean,
Yeah.
it was a fantastic storyline, and it those characters getting their due.
Mm-hmm.
I once again, it just felt like it was fully fleshed out and thought through, and the characters were given their time to
Mm-hmm.
shine in their moment. I really loved that.
And having the, again, we probably said it in the episode when we talked about the other 4 episodes, but
Mm-hmm.
have it be the same actors at the end of
Yeah.
Revenge, episode 3.
Yeah.
Perfect. The
Perfect.
fluidity, the consistency, like
Star
just
Wars
again
has
the
had that
chops to do it.
absolutely, and Star Wars has had gotten lucky with that. I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
everybody once you're in Star Wars and Star Wars calls, you come back, of course.
Yeah.
But just ask Anthony Daniels. But anyway,
Yeah.
but yeah, it definitely like having that fluidity and the consistency between like once again Bale and Breha.
Yeah.
they're the same characters. Like I mean, the same actors. Like everything. It was a love letter to the prequels, and in a lot of ways to the Clone Wars
Mm-hmm.
themselves. It beautifully done. It really was beautifully done, especially with all the side characters themselves. Like everybody had a little bit of movement with their stories.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then the fight.
and then the fight. I mean, we can talk about like how
It starts off, Obi-Wan is already ready.
it already ready, and Vader is like, "Have you come to destroy me?" And he echoes exactly what he says at the previous fight. I will
Mm-hmm.
do what I must.
Mm-hmm.
And they're, look at you got 6 episodes in Kenobi. You got 6 episodes of the first 6 episodes, right? Each episode
Mm-hmm.
kind of follows a similar sort of storyline in a way.
In a way.
And I love the fact that, you get this Obi-Wan who is ready to face Vader and himself and damn the consequences, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he is Obi-Wan,
Yeah.
and only Obi-Wan can do what he's about to do.
Mm-hmm. And he, in his mind, is still facing Anakin.
Absolutely. It's not Vader, it's Anakin.
It's not Vader.
Yeah, and he has to put this behind him. And he's got to destroy Anakin.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, he tells Yoda in episode 3, he's like a brother to me. I can't destroy him.
Mm-hmm.
And I found it incredibly fascinating, like how, like my curiosity was, if they're going to have this huge fight, how is it they're going to leave it so that one of them doesn't wind up dead?
Yeah.
And it's exactly through that. It was in the moment that Obi-Wan was there not to fight Darth Vader. He
Yeah.
was there to fight Anakin and put Anakin to rest.
Yeah.
And throughout the fight, which we'll talk
Hmm.
about, but like just having the moment he realizes that, Anakin is gone and
Yeah.
that it wasn't his fault. Healing and getting that peace can be a pretty powerful and amazing thing. And it was enough for Obi-Wan to walk away.
Yeah.
And, I'll see you later, Darth, basically. And it's just
in
like,
in that fight, they're going back and forth. The choreography and the fighting is incredible.
yeah,
But it comes to the halfway point in the fight where Vader does the cover him in rocks tactic,
yeah,
which has, maybe a 35% chance of actual success of the time.
right.
um, and Obi-Wan kind of lets go of all of his
Fear.
fear, all of the anxiety, dread, dark stuff that was holding him back, aspects of the dark side. And what grounds him is the future.
Right,
Is he's fighting for Luke, he's fighting for Leia, he's fighting for a better tomorrow.
right,
And I think in those things, it's like this isn't only on him.
right.
He can do what he can. He will do what he must, but ultimately it's him versus Anakin.
Yep. And when he comes out,
Mm-hmm.
he's fully powerful.
Well,
He is, I believe it's in that moment, the way I like to look at it is Obi-Wan was buried under those rocks and Ben came out.
yeah.
Because when we see the reapproach of the fight, Obi-Wan is no longer sticking strictly to Form 3.
Mm-hmm.
He's mixing in some Ataru, Form 4. He's using Anakin's own, like, abilities against him, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's that fully leaning into the sass of Obi-Wan and of Ben. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I find it to be incredibly fascinating, like the reapproach to the fight. Like, he comes in like a fury,
Yeah.
and there's that one point where he's got Vader up against the pillar, and he lifts up all the rocks and just starts tossing at him like it's nothing.
Pelts him.
Yeah, absolutely, just like just what, like in a hailstorm,
Yeah.
and um at that point, like Vader's got to be hurting, and
Oh yeah.
then Obi-Wan keeps pressing the advantage. And remember, in Form 3, it's purely defensive, and
Mm-hmm.
so he's starting to attack. He's going after Vader because he realizes that it's it is still Anakin underneath there, regardless of what Vader says.
Yeah.
And he's using everything that he does know against him. And when he switches around the hilt of the
Hilt.
lightsaber and starts bashing in the Vader's chest plate,
Mm-hmm.
it's brutal.
It's
Like,
brutal.
it's
There's a
absolutely brutal.
In most cases, lightsaber fights typically aren't physical.
Not at all.
We always have the in the original series, like Vader on Cloud City throws a vapor container at Luke
Right.
and it hits him like a foam prop.
Right. Yeah.
um and like there's more physicality in the prequels. More so the CGI elements. I specifically thinking of when Obi-Wan's knocked out and Dooku kind of pulls the landing down on him and it kind of pushes him and Obi-Wan a little bit. I'm like, that's a little bit of CGI there.
Right, right.
Um, but this one's like, again, like the throwing the rocks, which you could definitely say is like, okay, yeah, that's special effects. But the hilt of the lightsaber being bashed into the chest piece, one of the probably second to the mask, is one of the most iconic things about Vader.
Yeah, yeah.
Being bashed in by the bottom of a lightsaber, and then hearing the wheeze breathing
Oh, I love the wheeze breathing.
of Vader.
Yeah.
And when you hear the wheeze breathing, you know he's fucked up.
Exactly. And then after that happens, after Vader is reeling, I mean, Obi-Wan literally starts running, bounces off a rock, and then was going to go cut off his head.
Mm-hmm.
Literally was going to go cut off his head. And
Yep.
Vader pulls back and, like Ahsoka before, catches the other side of his helmet.
And we say other side because of Rebels.
Well, and that's the thing.
Thank you, Rebels.
Thank you, Rebels, and that's the thing. Like, it absolutely inspired that scene, and I love the fact that it was both of them were able to catch a glimpse, but it was only Luke who got to see his full face afterwards. Like, there's something really beautiful about that storyline, but
because it is like Anakin, for him, two closest people in his life,
absolutely,
aside from Padme,
right,
are Obi-Wan and Ahsoka.
That's right.
Those are his family.
Right.
Those people are his family.
To be replaced by Luke when he realizes who he was.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's powerful. And in that moment, you get some of the great lines from Obi-Wan, and you just feel the sadness in him, and the way that they mixed the way they mixed James Earl Jones' voice and Hayden Christensen's voice together with the Vader-esque sort of thing. It was so good. Oh, it was phenomenal. Absolutely. And
when after his helmet is cut and we see and he does the turn, when I was watching that episode for the first time, I practically mouthed the words Anakin alongside Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
Because it's like, what was going to happen. If you watch Rebels, you know what the next word is going to be.
Absolutely.
And again, yes, the mixing between James Earl Jones and Hayden Christensen for the voice is so good.
Yeah.
It gives me chills.
Yeah. I mean,
and
it's, oh, man.
What he says again, the reaching out that Obi-Wan does.
Yeah. Still trying to save him.
And everything, the years of regret and everything. Like, Obi-Wan holds a lot of what happened on him.
Yeah.
Like, in the same way that we'll get to when we talk to us about Ahsoka, but Ahsoka, like, she fears that she's going, because her master fell to the dark side, that's a possibility for her, and the worries of how the effect on master and apprentice is. I'm sure through the years that Obi-Wan was like, if I could have done better, what could I have done?
Right.
And I feel like some of that he feels is on him for the results of the Clone Wars and what happened afterwards. And all that kind of comes out when he sees Anakin's face.
Yeah.
And goes, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I guess, I'm sorry. And I appreciate Anakin Vader saying, this is not your fault. Like, he doesn't have to say that. Like, no. He doesn't. Like, Vader knows that that's one of Obi-Wan's pains, right? Mm-hmm. So he could have just dug in. Yeah, you did this to me, bitch, sort of thing, right? But no, he wants, like, it tracks for Anakin, it tracks for Vader. You didn't do this to me. I did this to me. I wanted this, right? Like,
yeah.
So he didn't have to say that, and for him to say that this wasn't your doing, this is me. Like I
Yeah.
killed Anakin, and it was so incredibly powerful. Like such an epic, quick fight, like a really quick
Hmm.
fight this time around. Incredibly epic moments we could talk about for hours, but it's this afterwards where these two brothers in arms, who been through hell together and back, and who, need to, I guess, for each one of them to, get some sort of peace at the end of it. Vader won't find his peace for a while until he takes care
No.
of Obi-Wan for a while, or in a
Yeah.
while. But even then, only Obi-Wan let him do it, because
Yeah.
at that point he was ready to become one with the Force. And so, yeah, it's such a
And kind of jumping ahead a little bit, we see that Vader does not let this go.
no, he doesn't.
Like the next time we see him after, you know, Obi-Wan leaves him screaming Kenobi, Obi-Wan,
Yeah,
because Darth Maul has trademark on Kenobi.
that's right.
Um, the next time we see him is on Mustafar talking to a hologram of Palpatine, going, "I need to go after Obi-Wan.
Yeah,
Obi-Wan's my priority." And Palpatine's like, "No, I'm wondering if your thoughts on this matter are clear.
right.
Maybe
Exactly.
your attachment to your old master is clouding your judgment."
Right.
In a way, also gaslighting him, because he knows that Obi-Wan is his strongest tie back to Anakin.
Right. Exactly.
And Palpatine wants to keep him as far away from Obi-Wan and being swayed back as much as possible, while still keeping the revenge and brutality and dark side ambitions. He'd rather let his experiences with Obi-Wan haunt him and traumatize him more and make him angry more, so that that rage can be utilized against others rather than any sort of healing.
I also got to say, I think Palpatine doesn't want Vader getting anywhere close to Obi-Wan
Mm-hmm. Yes.
because Obi-Wan keeps kicking his ass.
Yeah.
Seriously. Like, I mean,
Darth Vader got that one back on the mining planets, but that was it.
yeah, but even then, he was dealing with an Obi-Wan who was afraid to light up his lightsaber. So, like,
Uh-huh.
yeah, I mean, and I guess to finish up the episode, we have, a a lovely little scene where we get Leia,
Mm-hmm.
and she's fully embracing her responsibilities and duties as the princess, and she's doing it her own little cute way with the holster and the gloves
Mm-hmm.
and doing all the things. And you can see that this whole thing with Obi-Wan has really, like, touched her and changed her. And to have Obi-Wan show up, and that whole scene between the two of them,
It's so sweet.
oh my goodness, like where he's like, when he tells them, my favorite quotes in it is, she's like, you're brave and you're discerning, and those are qualities from your mom, and you're um fearless, and these are qualities from your father, and like, that moment was so good. It
Is
was,
so touching, and
yeah,
you see Obi-Wan actually smile
yes,
and laugh
yes. And
for the
it
first time
the
in,
whole
I think, the whole
the
show.
whole show, and it was so poignant. Like, it was actually, like, so startling that it was like, oh wow, you actually just laughed. And yeah, it was fantastic. It like, she brought him back,
Mm-hmm.
and it's Leia brings
Oh,
Obi-Wan back.
you saying that clicked something in my mind,
What's that?
where Leia brought Obi-Wan back and Luke brought Anakin back.
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Star Wars really is an opera, and
It's like poetry.
it's
It
like poetry.
rhymes.
It really is. Yeah, I mean, it was finished beautifully, and I
Mhm.
mean, the last little bit, after like we get the hello there with the whole scene with Luke and
With
Owen.
Luke.
I really loved that where you know Obi-Wan's just like, hey, the only protection that Luke needs is you and Beru.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I'll be
I'll
around.
be around, but like he's always gonna be watching, but like he's not gonna be like, I gotta train the kid and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
But that scene where the part in that scene where Owen's like, hey, you want to meet him,
Yeah.
and we finally get the hello there. Oh, it was so good, especially with the T-16 fighter.
Yeah.
Like the one that Luke is freaking playing with, like later on. It just, it's
Yeah.
so beautiful. And then,
And then
of
he goes
course,
off.
and we get
Yeah.
Qui-Gon.
He goes off but to the essentially find his hut.
Yep,
Find the house we see him in A New Hope.
that's right.
And Qui-Gon shows up. And he goes, "It's about time.
Yeah, yeah. I've been waiting for
We
you.
have a lot of training to do
Yeah.
now."
Well, and I just love that. And he goes, I've been hoping to see you. And he goes, perhaps you weren't ready yet.
Yeah.
And it. So I'm going to use that to spin off into what I want to say.
Uh huh.
These days of storytelling in TV, it's either focused or it's too wide. Like
Agreed.
Star Trek back in the day, you'd have 26 episodes, of which,
Pretty wide.
yeah, and of which maybe 10 of them are filler episodes that really move the
Mm-hmm.
characters along, but don't really move a story along. They're not like big stories, blah, 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 blah. Discovery season 4 was one big story that they could have broken it down and
Cut in half.
halved it, easy, halved it, and done something else.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Kenobi is what I believe to be the best take, on modern storytelling, where we only got 6 episodes, but they told their entire story.
Agreed.
They told their entire story. They got everything that they wanted to get
In
done
6 episodes.
in 6 episodes, and it felt really good paced. Like you can
Mm-hmm.
actually like. There are some slow parts, and ultimately, in the end, when you have 7 hours, 6 hours of show, you're gonna have some moments, but
Yeah.
like it felt focused. It felt like
It did.
they told their story, and that's not happening a lot these days.
It is I think the goal that has to be shot for
Yeah,
every single time. Like you have a certain amount of episodes that you have to tell your story. Utilize what you have
exactly.
and use it effectively
Right,
and move characters forward, move the story forward, reveal something.
right, exactly. And that it is just Obi-Wan should be, I don't know if it's a master class in it, but
Sure.
it
Yeah.
should be looked
Yeah.
at for sci-fi at least, on how to take characters, move them forward using existing media. Like Star Trek and Star Wars should pay attention to what Kenobi did.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, we haven't talked about Strange New Worlds much. We're going to be finishing up that here soon, one of our next episodes.
Mm-hmm.
But Strange New Worlds is another example of how you do that, but how you can also go too far in some other
Yes.
directions. And so, yeah, I think for me, Kenobi is the perfect example right now of having a story that you want to tell,
Mm-hmm.
having knowledge of exactly how much time you have to tell that story, and executing a plan. I really enjoyed Kenobi.
Same. I think my addition on that is we'll be talking about it later, but Picard season 3 I think is the other
Agreed.
one
Agreed.
where they had a story, they had a goal in mind. The whole thing was ambitious and they did what they could with their budget.
Yep.
Um and it resulted in a phenomenal season.
Yep.
Like from start to finish.
Yep. Agreed.
So I Didn't mean to cut you off, but
No, no,
like I wanted to add in that as
yeah,
well.
absolutely, and I can't forget about that one as well. So I mean, yeah, overall, I really enjoyed Kenobi.
Same.
I'm hoping though eventually we'll get a second season. I know that as soon as they finished recording, they were talking about ideas for the next one, but
The next one, yeah.
yeah, I mean, who knows? I mean, Star Wars is.
I would love to. I would love to see it.
Yep.
But
If we don't,
it's one of the things that it was made as a standalone series.
a standalone series
And
broken down from the parts of a movie that got canceled.
exactly.
And so
And
what we got, if we got that out of that, fantastic news.
fantastic.
And I love that Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen got so much love, and they deserve absolutely all of the accolades,
Every
every
ounce
bit
of
of
it.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was a fantastic story. So really enjoyed these two seasons and kind of a different sort of dichotomy between the two of them. But yeah,
Same.
yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of fun.
I want to say that the Kenobi was absolutely phenomenal. And I think an interesting tie-in between the two that we talked about was how they utilized their VR space.
Yeah, yeah,
Both shows used for Star Wars, it's the volume, and for Star Trek, it's the VR wall.
right.
Both had limitations on it. Both shows had some of growing pains throughout their seasons. Where I know there were some people who are going like, there's a lot of open spaces that feel empty.
Right.
Well, not particularly during like the fight between Obi-Wan and Anakin or Vader.
Right.
Is they threw rocks in. That I think that's the benefit of the volume, is being able to add in props really effectively. There were some other things like when they were storming the Inquisitorius, that there were some empty spaces there. Just being fair between both shows.
Right. Exactly.
But it's interesting that both of those had very similar problems because of COVID
And budgets.
and budgets.
Yeah. So funny. So funny.
So,
Yeah.
but I think, and this is really funny because this also kind of shows what can be done. Now, this isn't entirely fair, but Kenobi has half of the episodes that Discovery Season 4 did.
Right, exactly.
And so I'm not asking for more short seasons. I honestly want 12 episode long seasons.
Agreed.
If we can't do 24, then 12, 8, 6 is fine. But every single time it has to be written with the knowledge that you're only getting this amount of episodes, and that the pacing has to match it.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly it. And that's the world that we now live in, and I'm curious to see how it's going to change as we go forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we did.
That sounds like a podcast.
We did it. Holy crap. So
Yeah.
now the key is releasing it.
Doing it again.
Yes, and doing it again. So for all of you, yeah, we obviously been putting out some of the model series and all of that jazz, and hope you guys watch this as well.
Yeah, thank you guys for watching the model videos.
Yeah.
That was very cool. I'm really excited that Jordan started doing those videos, and I love that those guys have been getting love.
Yeah, it's been crazy.
That's very cool.
Yeah, it's been crazy. Like that one video currently, as of now, has got like 1,450 views.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's kind of nuts. So the idea is we drop this here soon. It should be coming. Well, you'll be listening to it when you hear it, but who knows when it'll actually drop?
Hopefully soon.
Yeah, hopefully soon. Well, actually, within the next week or so.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I think that's all I got for today. You got anything left?
I think we should tease a little bit of the next podcast
Yeah,
that'll be happening.
yeah,
So, unfortunately, the next podcast isn't going to be the one from Star Trek, one from Star Wars. But we were only doing that because it fits so nicely together. We're going to be talking about Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 1, the last 3 episodes of that, and giving our thoughts on that. And then the second half of that podcast is going to be Season 2, because that has wrapped up pretty recently from
yeah,
our perspective.
yeah.
And we're going to be touching base on that.
Yeah, I'm excited for that one. I'm really super excited to talk about Strange New Worlds.
Mm-hmm.
Star Trek at some of its absolute finest. So, yeah, looking forward to the next episode for sure. So, yeah. Well,
Cool.
all right. Well, I think that's what I got. If you guys have any comments, please leave them down below. If you want to support the channel, please like and subscribe. And from me, I want to say thank you. Matt, you got anything to say?
I think Jeffrey Combs should be in Star Wars.
I can't disagree at all. For someone who is such a character actor and who does so many roles, I can think of no better place for Jeffrey Combs to be. And on that note, my friends, I hope you all have a wonderful day wherever you are in this beautiful world. And until we see each other again, live long and prosper, and the Force will be with you always.